Okay, so the warm-up for Thursday, we're going to go ahead and do number 1. And if you notice, it does have percent, so we might use the one chart, right? Okay, so Cassie wants to buy a pair of shoes for $26.50 and a shirt for $9.50. If the sales tax rate is $8 and 2,500%, what will be the amount of sales tax on Cassie's purchase? So,
wait, isn't the $26.50 and $9.50, isn't that like extra information?
It's not.
It's not?
Because it's asking for the sales tax on the purchase. So telling you what she's buying is kind of extra information, but because all you need is just the $26.50, the $9.50, and then how much the rate is. So we're going to go ahead and add $26.50 plus $9.50 So you add that up. So that, bring the decimal down. So 9 plus 6 plus 1 is 16, and that's 36. So she spent $36 on her purchase. So all we have to do now is find the sales tax. So we could do it two ways. We could change the percent to a decimal and then multiply, or we could do cross products. So which one do you prefer? Cross products? Okay. So then we know we're looking for sales tax and $36. And I'm just going to put $36 because sometimes the zeros get confusing and we don't need them right now. And then that's going to equal to 8.25 times over 100. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and multiply 8.25 times 36. So 6 times 5, 6 times 2 plus 3, 6 times 8 plus 1. Then add a 0, 3 times 5, 3 times 2, 3 times 8. Okay, then we add them all up.
Wait, isn't it 25 plus 1?
No, because the 1 was for the other one.
Oh.
Okay, so we do 0. 10, that's 1. 17, that's 1. 9, I need to move this. So this is 9 and 2. So how many decimal places do we have?
2. So we move back 2 spaces.
So that's 2 spaces, 1, 2. So that's $297. Does that make sense?
No.
No. What are we missing?
A decimal. Oh, wait, is it $297?
It's $297.
$2.97.
Yeah, but what are we missing to do? What? Divide by 100. Yeah, be careful because sometimes students get confused and think that that's the tax. So 102, 297. Remember, when you're dividing by 100, mental math tells you to move the decimal 2 times to the left. So that means it's $2.97. Okay, number 2. Mr. Juarez opened a savings account with an initial deposit of $560. The amount earns 1% simple interest. What is the total amount that Mr. Juarez will have in his account at the end of 3 years? And this is simple interest. So simple interest is in your reference chart, and the formula is interest is equal principal times rate times time. So I'm going to find the interest, and then I'm going to go ahead and put principal was $560. The rate was 1%, but remember, we have to change that to a decimal. So 1% would be 0.01, and then times 3 years. So then we're going to go ahead and multiply it. So 560 times 0.01. Well, if you actually just multiply by 1, and then move your decimal 2 times. That gives you that amount. And then you multiply $5.60 times 3. So that's 6, 18, 1, 15, 16. So that's $16.80. Now let's see what it's asking. Are they asking us just for the interest, or are they asking us for the total amount at the end of 3 years? So what is the total amount? So they're asking for total. So what do I need to do with the interest? Add it to 560. So 560 plus 1680 is going to give us $576.80. So that would be letter D. So simple interest is it's actually simple. That's why, because all you're doing is multiplying principal times rate times the time. Okay, any questions? Now, box plots are different because they're not asking you for percents. They're not asking you to analyze how many students, but they are asking you for different sections or different parts of a box plot. Now, you saw this last year, and you were told how to remember all the parts of a box plot last year too. So if you have Miss Wendell, okay, or you had me, you should know that the box plot has 5 measures, okay? So it'll be the lower extreme, the upper extreme, the lower quartile, the upper quartile, and then the median. So if you guys remember that, we actually went over that last year. So remember, you have your hand all the time. You should be able to remember. All you have to do is just look. The one on the left is your lower, upper, and then the first quartile, the third quartile, and then your median is in the middle. So if you remember that, then you shouldn't have trouble with that. So if you look at it, those are the different parts that we're looking at it. Also, all of this, that means that this part right here represents 25% of the data. So each section represents 25%. So depending on what the box plot is showing you, so I could ask from between what numbers is 50% of your lower data of. So between what numbers is 50% of your lower data. So in this case, you have 50% of the lower part. So you're looking at this part right here. So it'll be between 15, because that's your lower extreme. And this is not going to be 21. It's going to be 21 and a half. So your median here is 21 and a half. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and find out what the lower extreme is, what the upper extreme is, and then answer the questions that we have here. So today, basically, what we're doing is just learning how to read a box plot. So the lower extreme, if you notice, the dot here means that it's the lowest number in your data. So your lowest number would be 15. Okay? Now, between 15 and the lower quartile, well, that would be between these two, the lower extreme and medium. That is telling you that it's the lower part of the data. Now, when you're looking at the lower quartile, that's the median of the lower part of the data. Okay, so the median of the lower part is 19. The median of the whole data is going to be 21 and a half. Okay, now the lower part of the data is the other 50%. Okay, so we have a median also in there. So the upper quartile is the median of the lower part of the data. Okay, now we don't have to actually find those things. We just need to know how to read them. So the upper quartile would be 25. And then your upper extreme or lower, your upper extreme would be 29. Okay, so those are the five measures you need. Now, for the lower quartile is also called the first quartile, and the upper quartile is also called the third quartile. And if you notice, this is the first one, and that's the third one, because the median would be the second one. Okay, now that we kind of know how to read it, we're going to go ahead and answer the questions. So what percent of the data is greater than 25? So if you look, where's 25? Yeah, in the upper quartile, right? So what percent is between the upper, it's greater than that? Say it again?
27.
It says what percent? So if you notice, remember I told you between the upper quartile and upper extreme, that's 25%, isn't it? So then that means it's 25%. Okay, remember between the five measures, it's a quarter. Okay, so if you look at your hand, between the lower and the lower quartile, that's 25%. Okay, between the lower quartile and the median, that's 25%. Between the median and the upper quartile, that's 25%. And the upper quartile and the upper extreme, that's 25%. So between, you have 25%. Okay, so that could help you also. So now, what percent of the data is less than 19? So what percent is less than 19? Come on, guys. It's just 25. What percent of data is greater than the median? Greater than the median? 50%. Because now you have two 25s in there, don't you? Okay. What percent of the data is less than 25%? Than 25, sorry. Less than 25? 75. You guys understand that? I didn't hear you. Sorry, Matthew. Okay, so it is going to be less than, it's going to be 75%, anything that's less than 25. So basically, if you remember that, then you shouldn't have any trouble remembering how to read a box plot. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to find different things from our box plot. So in this case, you have to find the range. Well, to find the range, don't you use the lower extreme and the upper extreme? So the lower extreme would be what? 50. And the upper extreme is 80. So we're going to go with 80. Whoops. 80 minus 50. And that gives you 30. So the range is 30. And remember, range could also be called spread. Okay, so all you have to do is look for the lower extreme and upper extreme. Okay, interquartile range. Wow, that's a big word, right? And they usually say IQR. Interquartile range is asking you for the range between the lower quartile and the upper quartile. So in this case, you're doing 70 minus 50, and that gives you 20. So the interquartile range is 20. So far, so good? Okay, now the median is the easiest thing to remember because remember, in your hand, that's your median. Okay? That's your median. So the median would be what in this box plot? 20. Did you have to solve for anything? No. The median is the easiest thing you could find in the box plot. Now, when you're giving box plots, you're also going to be asked what the shape is. And you guys remember the shapes? It's either skewed left, skewed right, or symmetrical, right? So if you look at this, is the first one skewed left, skewed right, or symmetrical? Okay, you're not looking at the number line. You're only looking at the box plot. So basically, you're only looking at this part. You're not looking at the number line. So is it going to be skewed left, skewed right, or symmetrical? Symmetrical. Symmetrical. It's symmetrical. Okay, how about the next one? Again, we're only looking at the box plot. Is it skewed left, skewed right, or symmetrical? Skewed right? Left. Remember, wherever the longest part is, the longest tail, that's your tail, that's going to be skewed left. You're looking, misspelled that. You're looking for the tail. That's what you're looking for. Okay, and let's look at the last one. Again, you're looking at the box plot, only skewed left, skewed right, or symmetrical? Skewed right, because the tail is on the right. Okay, so basically all we did is just learn how to read a box plot. That's it. Any questions on how to do that? Remember your 25% in between the measures. Remember your median. Remember your interquartile range is the difference between those two. The range is the difference between those two. So if you remember, range, interquartile range, median. Okay, any questions? No questions? So you do have an assignment. You did pick it up. Make sure that you work on it. You do need to find all those that we said. Some of them you're just pointing out what's the lower extreme, the upper extreme, and all that. Make sure you put this in your composition book. Make sure you glue this. Okay, get started.